What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Another new edition of Celtics Beat here on a Thursday, and this is fun, isn't it? Celtics 2-0 commanding lead. At least it feels like it so far on the Sixers in the opening round of the playoffs. I'm Adam Kaufman. Let us welcome in the other voices you will hear throughout this next little while. Ben Rohrbach, Yahoo Sports, as well as, of course, Evan Valenti, producer, sometimes host of this program. Fellas, what's going on?
Not a whole lot. Just enjoying the games every day, all day.
I'm enjoying Ben's artwork in the background, which we talked about pre-recording. It's an excellent mural you got going on behind you, Ben.
Yeah, it expands every week. It's my daughter scribbles and draws caterpillars and all that.
Yeah, for those who are obviously watching the video, you can see the artwork behind Ben. If you're just listening on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you're finding us, it is basically it's home arts and crafts is what we've got going on, which I think a lot of people during this pandemic can relate to.
Yeah.
So, we talked about this with Abby Chin last week. This series for me is affectionately known as, if it were football, be it college or professional, this is the Al Horford Bowl. And poor Al, I guess, I don't feel badly for him at all, but poor Al is sitting there coming off the bench on the losing side while the new, rejuvenated, united, albeit still somewhat injury-plagued. We'll get to the Gordon Hayward injury, but this Celtics team is it's 2 games, and especially in game 2, but locked in, Ben. A blowout last night, roughly a 30-point win, contributions from everywhere. The bench was fantastic. Jason Tatum is quite literally and statistically getting better by the game. It is not taking away from the performances of Jaylen Brown and Kemba Walker. I mean, we joke about it every week, but pretty soon it's going to be real if this continues. We might have to have that virtual duck boat parade.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, they have played really well. It's kind of hard to tell because Philadelphia's played equally as bad, or it seems like they're just ready to go home. So it's hard to tell. And we'll get into the Hayward thing later, and I think that will be having more of an impact like in the second round. But it certainly seems like they should coast through this series.
I was going to save this until the very end of our conversation, but you alluded to it right there, so I think it's important to hit on. Maybe it is true the Sixers, no Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid's not 100%. The guys aren't clicking. There is that element of, do they just want to go home? You can't help but ask that when a team falls behind in a series. Like if a team in a normal year were down, I don't know, 2-0, 3-1, whatever, you wouldn't count out their ability to come back. You'd say, go get some games at home, the travel, home cooking, home fans, whatever the advantage, they can rally, they can turn things around. They're motivated. Well, this is not normal. This is, we talk about this all the time to the point where I realize it's kind of cliche, but it's true in a bubble environment in Orlando where at least right now, friends and family are not there. It is just, very small groups per team, all these hotels kind of staying together. There is that element of who wants to stay, who wants to fight, who wants that Larry O'Brien trophy, and who doesn't care enough, who just wants to go home, who isn't into August and September playoff basketball, which is why I believe firmly one of the favorites, whether it's the Lakers, the Clippers, the Bucks, I don't think they're going to win the championship. I think it's going to be, and that doesn't automatically mean, hey, it's going to be the Celtics total homer over here, as much as I think the C's have a chance. I think it's going to be one of those teams that we're not talking as much about because I think that mental approach to what this all is just so incredibly important this year.
Mm-hmm. I agree. As it pertains to this particular series, I think I forget who mentioned it on the broadcast last night, but it was a great point. Just down 2-0, normally the Sixers would be going home. They're going to be juiced by their fans. They have that whole narrative where, like, until you lose a home game, you're still in the series or whatever. But that's just totally gone. And this is just what it is. What it is. You got beat twice. There's no reason for optimism other than, hey, if we win game 3, maybe we're back in the series, but it seems like there's no, reinvigoration for the Sixers in this series. And I agree with the larger point, like I'm sure we'll talk about the Raptors, but the Raptors strike me as a team who, like, it's these teams that are well coached. They know who they are, and they play super together. And that's, the Raptors have been probably the best at that in the bubble, but the Celtics certainly fall into that category too.
One of the things I said last week about, and we said with Abby Chin, that I was a little worried about with Philadelphia, because they couldn't, as you said, you can't get that juice from your home crowd to really get you going, is who on their team provides the energy that they need to come back from something like this, right? Because you look at the Celtics, I mean, Marcus Smart's the obvious character you're going to pick for that, right? It's, he, as soon as he hits the floor, there's automatic energy. It doesn't matter whether it's starting or he comes off the bench. But you look at the Sixers last night. I mean, they had a great first quarter. They shot 78% from the field in the first quarter. You're like, oh, they're coming out. There's some purpose there. But the Celtics are going to make a run. They did. Tatum had his own little run. Kemba had flashes. Jalen would take over at points. And then all of a sudden it's a 10 to 15 point game, and there's no energy on the bench. And where does that energy come from? It's not going to be Joel Embiid. It's not going to be Al Horford. It's never been that guy, right? It's not going to be Matisse Thybulle. He's a rookie. That's not how this works. Tobias Harris is a really quiet guy. Was it going to be Shake Milton or Josh Richardson, or is it going to be that whole team hates Brett Brown? At least it looks like they do. So it's not like, where does that energy come from? And now, and as you mentioned, that you're down 2-0 in a bubble where you can't get that juice. Like, I hate doing this because these are professional players. Anything can happen in a series, but just by looking at the body language on the other side of the floor there, it doesn't look pretty for Philadelphia. This might be a quick 4-and-out series here for Philly. That's not how they pictured this season going at all.
Yeah.
What Evan's telling you is the series is over. It's done. Celtics already moved on to round
I said
two.
season 5, so I'm not saying that I didn't see this coming, but this is a little different, I think.
It certainly feels that way, and it's like Embiid is sort of a classic example. It's like his body language is indicative of the series as a whole. Like he comes out like, I'm going to dominate this game, and then by the second quarter, he's either too tired or he's just resigned to the fact that the Celtics are a better team than the Sixers, and he's just sort of loses focus, and then it's all done. That's what it feels like. It's going to be every game for the rest of the series.
It's easy to say Jason Tatum. Simple 2-word answer, but I want more than that. What has impressed you most about the Celtics in this series so far?
I think just the way they've been able to survive those bench minutes. Cantor has actually held up pretty well against Embiid. I mean, he hasn't been great, but it hasn't been a disaster. Wanamaker's looked pretty good.
He's a leader. You listen to Kemba Walker. He's a leader on the team.
Yeah. Grant Williams actually had a little nice stretch in game 2. They're going to really need those guys with Hayward out. So it's been at least encouraging through 2 games.
Is it so matter-of-factly clear to you, despite the talent of Joel Embiid individually on the other side? And I had the Celtics in 6 simply because I figured, hey, C's are going to win the series, but there are going to be a couple of Joel Embiid games, and it's just going to be too much. And so ultimately C's will prevail. But, obviously, as Evan noted, it doesn't look like this is going to be much of a fight at all in this series, at least if things keep going this way, because there is no travel. Hey, game 3, you're still in Orlando. You're still in the bubble.
Yeah.
Is it so incredibly clear Jason Tatum is the best individual talent within this series?
I mean, it's certainly becoming clear. I guess you would say, you would have said Embiid can be the most dominant, but it's pretty clear. Embiid needs to rely on his teammates to sort of set him up, and they don't have their best table setter. And I don't know if you saw that Josh Richardson entry pass that was so off that the Celtics just stole it, and you could just see on Embiid's face, he was just Jesus.
What now? What do I do now?
Yeah. But Tatum, he doesn't need that. He's an offense unto himself. But last night they were just setting one screen. He comes around and he pulls up, and drills a 3, or drives and creates. But yeah. So I mean, short answer, yes, it seems like he's clearly the best player in this series.
Yeah, I don't think it's like remarkable. It's just effort, right? Like being consistent every night and consistent from quarter to quarter. You know what you're getting with Jason Tatum as soon as he hits the floor. Again, you talked about the shot creation, the defense, the vision now. We're starting to see some really excellent, passes, whether it's on the fast break or in the half court. Seen some really excellent stuff out of Tatum. The defense is just spectacular on his part, but it's the consistency, right? That's what makes a good player a great player, right? The consistency that person shows. And Embiid, he comes out in the first quarter, and I was sitting there with my friends last night watching the game, and my friends are getting nervous, like, oh man, Embiid's really killing us tonight. And I'm like, well, wait a minute here, it's only the first quarter. You tell me, wait till the fourth quarter to see if he's doing this stuff, because he comes in and he flows in and out of games. He takes a good approach. Like, that's exactly how to start the game. Embiid, feed the beast, get some easy points, get him feel good about himself. But in the fourth quarter, that effort's not there. And with Tatum, that effort never stops. And that's the difference between the two guys right now. It really is. Because Embiid is as talented as anybody that you'll put on the floor. And you see he does stuff that nobody else can do. I mean,
for sure.
Last night he had a stop, like up and under, and just because he's so long, he can still go up and under and flip it up for 2 points. Like, how many bigs can do that? 2, maybe, like not that many. But then you watch him, he'll fumble an entry pass, or he won't move on defense, and with Tatum, you don't have to worry about that stuff. He's engaged every minute, every second when he's on the floor.
Mm-hmm. And Jalen's like, 1B to him, or whatever.
Right.
Like, Jalen sort of turned that game 2 around, where he you could tell he was just super engaged on defense, and it sort of rallied everybody to sort of lock in when they made that run. I guess it was like end of first quarter, beginning of the second quarter. He was just like super locked in, and there was that one play where he missed 2 shots. He missed that corner 3, and then he just beat everybody on the Sixers back to the ball and got an easy layup. So it's like they have Tatum, but then you can't ignore Jaylen Brown on the Sixers, who's going to hurt you besides Embiid.
Yeah,
Josh Richardson or Tobias Harris, they've been like pretty bad.
We'll get back with Ben and Evan in just a second. Want to tell you, of course, live sports are back. It's very possible we may see an NBA playoff matchup between the Clippers and the Nuggets, which is why our partners at Manscaped have partnered with us to make sure your Nuggets are as safe as possible when that matchup happens. I deliberately waited before reading this ad. I wanted to do it live just so I can get all of these jokes authentically when I hit them the first time. Manscaped is here to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. The Lawnmower 3.0, it's the best hygiene tool for the modern man because of their ceramic blade, skin-safe technology. Your snags will be reduced. They actually just released their Shears 2.0 nail kit. That does not sound like something you want to let near your lower half, the Shears 2.0 nail kit. But even still, it does the trick. It's the perfect add-on to the Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer. The Shears 2.0, it's a luxury 4-piece nail kit featuring tempered stainless steel tools. It includes slashed-tipped tweezers, rounded point scissors, fingernail clippers, and a medium grit nail file as well. And the perfect package 3.0 comes with the new and improved lawnmower, waterproof, cordless body trimmer. That's right. Go at yourself in the shower. Performance boxer briefs and a travel bag for you to use when you're doing your quarantining. The perfect package 3.0. It also comes with the crop preserver and crop reviver. I feel like I just needed to insert a pause there. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code BEAT20 at manscaped.com. Maybe it's for Celtics Beat, maybe something else. Get 20% off free shipping with the code BEAT20 at manscaped.com. That is 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code BEAT20. Take your grooming game to the next level. So speaking of going to the next level, Ben, as we welcome back Ben and Evan, something that it's hard to follow that, but something that has
impossible to follow that.
Actually, it's something that's really been on my mind for this is not, I don't know how much this is talked about on a national and local radio level. I imagine a lot, but something that we have been talking about, harping about on this program since minute one that Kemba Walker was signed, is obviously the difference between Kemba Walker and Kyrie Irving. And it, quite frankly, I like, and this is not going to turn into a Kyrie bashing show. It would, we just don't really have the time to do it. The thing that I really appreciate is that these younger players on Boston who were here last year are still being asked about just what last year was like, even now in the playoffs, as it relates to the comparisons, Kyrie versus Kemba, even when specifically the name Kyrie Irving is not being dropped in these questions because it would just be too obvious. But you had, after game 2, Jason Tatum asked again. These guys have been asked about this. Jaylen Brown has been asked about this. How easy is it? How beneficial is it having a guy like Kemba Walker leading your team? He is the head of the snake, but he isn't someone that is worried about the attention, the accolades, the points, the production. He's a proven all-star, 20-point-per-game guy, but he isn't someone that needs that ego fed, basically. And Tatum's answer, just to paraphrase, was, it's great. If he has a good game, awesome. If he has a bad game, whatever. As long as we win, he is smiling. That is the most important thing in the world to Kemba Walker. Now coming here to Boston after all those years with the Hornets, he just wants to win. And it really is. It's a night and day experience last year versus this year in terms of the continuity of this group, the emotion around this group, the happiness around this team. And I just think that, you know, Kemba Walker's role, not even just as a player, but as a person, is not celebrated enough externally.
I agree. I mean, it's so clear. There's a couple things that stand out from that point. Just there's no way Kyrie would let Tatum be the focal point that he's become. There's just no way. That doesn't happen if Kyrie's here. And then I forget who tweeted. I think it was Brian Robb last night. Probably Celtics Beat rival.
Nah, we're all one happy.
He was on the show 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, he's part of the CLNS Media family.
All right, that's true. That's true.
Podcast to plug.
That's true. But just that play last night where I think Kemba got his shot blocked by Embiid, turned into a transition opportunity for the Sixers. And all of a sudden you see Kemba just sprinting back and he knocks the ball loose from Embiid, I think, again, and turned around and got a bucket. But it was just like, I think B-Rob tweeted something like, you know, juxtapose that with like Kyrie's defense in the second round against the Bucks last year. And it's like, it's just he's fully engaged. And as you said, like, you can see it on his face. He's just really enjoying being around this team and winning playoff games. It's really nice to see. And you know, it was palpable earlier in the season. Obviously I'm not in the bubble, but it's like you can hear it in their voices. It's just a whole new game.
You know, I never really thought about this until just now. You guys tell me if I'm off base here, but maybe there's something to it. You know, all those years in LeBron's shadow, Kyrie Irving so desperately wanted to be the man. He wanted to be the guy. People know that, it's been talked about. But he came to Boston. It was like, this is my team. I am that guy. And as a result, everybody else drowned in his shadow, essentially. And Kemba Walker, it's really the opposite. Yeah, I mean, he was the leader on a lot of bad teams, you know, a lot of teams that missed the playoffs. But even though he was an inferior statistical player and talent to Kyrie Irving, it was still, those were his teams. He was the leader. He was the guy. And I think a certain way, Ben, he's kind of rejuvenated coming to Boston, knowing that I can still put up my 20. I can still be an all-star. I can still take over a game. I can still meet with the media every day, but I don't have to be the guy. And some of that is obviously maturity. He's a few years deeper into his NBA career, but a lot of it is just personality. Mm-hmm. It's that role reversal, where he's been versus where he's from, or where he's, you know, at now. And sort of the backstory there, Irving versus Walker, it's very different.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think he's been pretty upfront about, just he really wanted to be part of a winning culture. And a lot of guys say, you know, I don't really care about the stats or whatever, as long as we're winning. But with him, it really feels, everything he says feels genuine. But that really does feel genuine when he says, like, it doesn't really matter how many points I get or whatever. I'm just happy to to be a part of a winning team. And so I guess, their lived experiences just really impacted, their approach to joining the Celtics. And that makes complete sense.
Seems to be really happy too, Evan, just helping them along to the next phase of their career. These are two guys that, we saw the talent throughout the early parts of their careers, still very early in their careers, but thinking back to specifically when Irving was here versus pre-Walker. But, they have so clearly taken that next leap. Brown started to toward the end of last year. Tatum, as we know, his sophomore year was not what his freshman year was in the NBA. But now year 3, these guys have both. Jalen cashes in, and he has only gotten better. Tatum is going to get that max level deal, and he is, people are talking about him as superstar level player. And it's not just the national pundits, former players, whomever else. Kemba Walker saying as recently as after yesterday's game, these guys are superstars. And I think there's a certain level of pride that Walker takes in being someone that is helping them get to the next stage of their careers.
Yeah. It's a mentality, right? So I'm trying not to slander Kyrie here. I'm going to try and just focus mostly.
Why? We do it all the time.
I'm going to try and focus mostly on Kemba, because what Kemba has realized, and this is Kemba's been the guy. I would assume back to his days, in high school when he was playing. I have no idea about his high school accolades, but I'm sure he played in the Bronx and was the superstar. Goes to UConn, has the incredible run where he's literally the focal point of every offensive opportunity that UConn has during the Big East tournament, during the NCAA tournament. Goes to Charlotte, at first was trying to figure out his way. And if you heard the podcast with, what's it, R2C2 on the Ringer, right?
Yeah.
Where they had him on.
Yeah. Where he talked about considering the Knicks in free agency.
Yeah. Tough shot there, but
good decision.
Yeah. Did all right. But he talked about how, in Charlotte, he was trying to feel his way. Then he talked to, Michael, and Michael was like, no, I brought you here to be Kemba Walker. And so, he took upon himself to be more of a leader. And was the man on all these Charlotte teams that went nowhere, right? Didn't go anywhere. I think Kemba, there's certain humility that comes with this, but Kemba realized, I'm not going to win a title, which is the ultimate goal here, right? I'm not going to win a championship unless Jalen and Jason kind of help me out. And his reluctance to Tatum and to both Tatum and Brown makes his team go. It really does. You have – Tatum is just every game. You kind of fawn over the stuff that he can do on the offensive end. You just laugh, like the sidestep or the step back sidestep 3 that he's got in his back pocket that he pulls out 3 or 4 times a game and hits 50% of them. You just sit there and laugh, and the turnaround fadeaways and all that stuff. And you have Jalen, who provides so much stability in times where you need a clutch bucket. It's just like, just get the ball to Jalen. He'll find an opportunity, whether it goes to the basket or he hits wide open 3. Kemba realizing that those two guys, if I don't have those two guys engaged and I don't have those two guys, playing at a all-star, all NBA sort of level, then I'm not going to win anything. And, Kemba, the one thing that I was concerned about in the bubble leading up to these games was, can Kemba figure out where he needs to be aggressive and figure out where he needs to lay out? And that's going to take just, playing with Jason and Jalen again. And it seems like they've kind of figured it out, because last night you saw – a couple opportunities work. And this is how I know Kemba's sort of back to being Kemba, where he gets that pick and roll opportunity where he starts driving to the basket and pulls up from about 15. That's Kemba Walker's sweet spot. And it's been his sweet spot since college. Okay. He's pretty much automatic there. So finding times okay, we're a little bit of a rut right now. In the middle of the first quarter, I think he had a little bit of this. We're a little bit of a rut right now. Philly's making everything, even though we're competing on the defensive end of the floor. And I need to just stabilize us a little bit offensively. And he did a couple, calls the number a couple of times, and all of a sudden, the Celtics, explode to a 27-point win over the hell it was over Philadelphia. And you're like, all right, yeah, feeling good about our prospects. And Kemba, touting both Jalen and Jason in the postgame, being like, yeah, those two guys are unbelievable. It makes my job a lot easier. Just brings the vibe to where you want it to be with this crew. Just the chemistry, the vibe around this particular team was so much different than it was last year. And then you watch Philly on the other side, and it reminds you of last year's Celtics, and you're like, yeah, I don't miss that at all whatsoever.
That's true. Yeah, Kemba, I think he did that in the third quarter too, where, it might have been the lead was 11 or something, or maybe got to 9. I forget. But he came off the bench and, he took, I think, the first 2 or 3 shots, and knocked him down. And it's like his game is perfectly suited for the Sixers team because when they do the pick and roll, like Embiid just drops way back and like that whole middle of the floor is open so he can just hit that easy jumper. It's great. But even beyond Jason and Jalen, I don't think it's talked about enough that he like adopted Grant Williams for the,
Right.
for the quarantine. Yeah. Like that just shows you.
Yeah.
I mean, who else? I hadn't heard anybody else do anything like that. Like
across the league.
Yeah, yeah. That's incredible. That's just like, he just like found a workout buddy, and it was the rookie on the team. It's crazy.
Well, I don't think there's like, if you talk to anybody that's covered basketball, at Kemba's level, or it's college basketball or it's the pros, like I don't know a single person that has a negative story about Kemba Walker at all.
True,
like
yeah.
There's not one. And it's just, again, you talk about him adopting Grant Williams. It's just the kind of guy he is. He's just he's a great teammate. And that's what you need when you have a lot of talent like the Celtics have. You need good teammates that know. And it's like, I think Nick Wright said this about LeBron yesterday. And, Nick Wright has his, own opinions about a lot of things. But
He's very anti-Celtics.
One of the things that I think he's correct about is, LeBron understands that they're not going to win a title if LeBron's, scoring 50 points a game and trying to carry them every night. No, he needs like Davis. He needs Kuzma. He needs, Danny Green to hit shots. And he's not going to win if Danny Green's going 0 for 8 from 3-point range. Like they're totally, they might beat the Blazers, but they're not going to beat the Clippers with that kind of effort. So, getting the ball around to his teammates, getting his teammates involved, is a way to win. Like making sure they're engaged is a way to win. And Kemba, just keeps everybody keeps everybody engaged in this team. It's the best part about this team is everybody's locked in at the same time. So you don't have to worry about that. And Kemba seems like the perfect fit for a team that just has a ton of talent on it. It doesn't care. Like, and I don't care if I have 2 points or 20. Like if we get the W, who cares? Like it doesn't matter.
There are points in time that if you follow Ben on Twitter, that his Twitter account will become a kind of a tribute to Nick Wright's terrible takes.
It was at one point. He wrote an article, and it was like one of my favorite articles in a long time. It was awesome.
Yeah. It was just he's been wrong about Tatum like literally
every
step.
Yeah,
every step of his career, he's been wrong about.
I think the only thing that, we all left out in this Kyrie versus Kemba discussion, and look, Kyrie has done a lot of great things as recently as during this pandemic for, the Black Lives Matter, for obviously donating a whole ton of money, whether it's creating funds related to the WNBA players not playing, or whether it's, building obviously awareness for social injustices. So this is not all intended to just crap on Kyrie, but obviously we know what the experience was in Boston. We're able to separate those two things. So this being the last negative thing that I say today about Kyrie in this comparison is he's also won a championship, and he hit the biggest shot maybe in NBA Finals history, whereas Kemba Walker is, that's the carrot that he is still chasing. So I just think, and this is not a new take by any stretch, we've said this before, others have as well, I just don't think winning is the most important thing in the world to Kyrie Irving. And it, if it ever has been, it hasn't been in a while, and it certainly wasn't during his time in Boston, and isn't now probably in his time in Brooklyn with Kevin Durant when they're healthy next year. So that's another big difference as it relates to just what Kemba Walker is attempting to do here in Boston. But it's going to be a tougher road. There's no doubt about it. I don't think I'm one of those people that is a big believer in Gordon Hayward, at least when he's right, when he's healthy, which he was before this, another freak ankle injury, not the one that he shattered a few years ago, but this is the right ankle, but he's out at least a month. I wouldn't be surprised if he's done for the bubble, given the just obviously they need to go a couple rounds without him. That's for one with this injury. Also, he has a new kid coming very soon. He was going to leave the bubble anyway to go and be with his family, which is understandable. So we may not see him again this year in the Celtics uniform, and we may not see him again in the Celtics uniform ever, quite frankly, given his contract situation. And that's a conversation for another day. But what does this road, despite what we saw, Ben, in Game 2, what does this road look like with Gordon Hayward? How devastating a loss is this? Is it as substantial as Danny Ainge at least said on the radio that it is? Or do you feel like you saw enough in this sort of perfect world fit of 48 minutes yesterday that this is going to carry on?
I would be really worried about the Raptors. That's where having that third wing who can do anything on the court is really huge, because that is what the Raptors do, and the Celtics could meet them head on and maybe even have an advantage in that department. But so that's a huge loss, I think, maybe against the Raptors than any other team. And it's just unfortunate that that's going to be their second round opponent if both teams advance. I mean, certainly it looks like they will.
I think you could chalk it up. Toronto's going to be fine.
yeah.
Yeah. You can do that right now, I think.
Right. So, yeah, I can actually source drop a little bit, but I was talking to somebody close to Hayward last night, actually, because I emailed after the injury. I was just like, that just sucks. It's like every time he's like starting to play well again, he gets hurt. But they said that he felt like he was playing like as close to optimal as he could have been. They dropped some stat that was like he put up numbers this year that were better than anybody else in history based on his usage rate. So he was just basically one of the most efficient people in his role that he could have been. And he's obviously disappointed, but they say he's trying like hell to get back as soon as possible. It's just whether they can survive that Toronto series, which obviously he won't be there for.
Yeah, Brad Stevens has called it aggressive treatment inside the bubble. He's still there with the team. He was at the arena watching Game 2. We'll see what the future holds, but it's for the present with Game 3 on the way tomorrow, obviously, as we chat right now. This has been fun so far. Ben Rohrbach from Yahoo Sports, NBA writer, does a lot of great work. You should give him a follow on Twitter. Watch everything that he's doing, not just when he appears on this show, as he is kind enough to do regularly. But we appreciate you hopping on, man. Hopefully all is well and family and everyone staying safe. So with all that, we say goodbye to Ben. We thank him for his time, and we welcome in a buddy of mine who, if you're watching, if you're tuning into the video, you can see that bleeping grin on his face, getting ready to just crap all over our beloved Boston Celtics. My friend, make sure that we can hear you as well. Make sure you're not muted. He's got a great Celtics hat as well.
Phenomenal.
He's meeting Evan here for the first time. And Seth Landman's his name. He actually, back in another lifetime, wrote fantasy basketball for ESPN, other outlets as well. How are you, buddy?
Doing all right. How are you?
I'm good. So I know you couldn't hear our conversation with Ben.
Yeah.
But he, like us, more pro Gordon Hayward than you are. I want to
by the way, I'm offended at the idea that I'm gonna crap all over the Celtics. It's like the best thing in my life right now.
I want he means that sincerely with every fiber of his being. I want you to know, Evan, these are just a sample of some of the texts that I get from Seth during a Celtics game.
Bring it.
Prompted, by the way. He just starts, and I love it. I want him to keep doing it. He'll just start texting. He'll say, if we don't stop reaching in on Embiid, I'm going to light myself on fire.
Yeah, this is really tame. Good.
Yeah.
Level-headed stuff.
Yeah, it's really, really well balanced. Let's see. Some of his other hot takes here. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. Javonte Green should get the bulk of the extra minutes. Want to see what Brad does.
I don't agree with this anymore. I changed.
Okay. Green has a great
you and Bill
net rating.
Simmons were in a similar category there. Although he kept calling him JaMychal Green instead of Javonte Green.
Yeah. Says a grown-ass man who's good at basketball. Gordon Hayward and the Memphis pick for Aaron Gordon and Al Farouk Aminu. This is my plan. So these are just some of the takes
You're
that
really
my guy
throwing me
Landon
under
here
the
will spit
bus
at
here,
me
man.
during a game. I just want to know. I want to tell you this, and then I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to let you go. Danny Ainge here on Tetra and Rich, 98.5 The Sports Hub. He said, I quote, "The Gordon injury is devastating to us. I'm not sure the average fan understands how important he is just because Jalen and Jason are really coming into their own. Kemba has had his unbelievable moments this year. Gordon is a facilitator. He is our most efficient offensive player, but he doesn't have the same kind of usage that these other guys have. He's very unselfish, yet he's capable of taking games over at times when we need it. The guys are resting. He has been a leader in our group. bench group, oftentimes it's crushing for him, really hurts our team. Don't know how long he'll be out. He's trying to come back, blah, 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 blah. But these are basically some of the things that I have texted you even before Danny's comments. I really parroted a lot of those things. And you and I were just not on the same page with it. You think this team can thrive without Gordon Hayward?
Yeah, I don't think they're better without Gordon Hayward, but I do think they can survive. I agree with what Ainge said. The thing that Hayward brings to this team that they're missing is passing. Traditionally, like all season, that's the thing he provides. I think, though, that over the last few weeks, months, Hayward and Tatum and Brown have really taken steps forward as passers. Yeah. And Smart's a great passer. I think Tice is a good passer. I think the ball is moving really well. And one of the things that jumped out at me last night is just the fact that Robert Williams and Grant Williams can both really pass the ball too. So I think, like, as these guys improve, the thing that they needed Hayward for has become less essential to them as a team. And I like, defensively, Hayward's good, but like having Grant Williams out there last night, being able to switch onto Embiid, the Celtics are so good at getting guys out of these terrible matchups they get in with the switching. Grant Williams is great at that, and he's a great passer too. So I just think, like, I think they lose a lot losing Hayward, but I think the team is ready to, like, step up around that.
But we know, like, we're not going to get, I don't think, regularly 30 points out of Jason Tatum every single game, unless he his pre-pandemic self still, and this just continues on throughout the postseason. We're not going to get,
I do. I think he averages 30 a game.
What's that?
He's going to average 30 a game.
He probably is. Just put him in the Hall of Fame now. We have no reason to believe that Jaylen Brown's not going to continue to give you 20 per. He did it throughout so much of the season. Kemba should, but obviously guys do have off nights. And it seemed like whenever someone had an off night, that was when Gordon did step up and give you those 25 to 30 points that he was capable of chipping in. Hell, he averaged almost 18. When there is that down game, when two of those three guys don't show up, Hayward was the potential saving grace to prevent that from being a loss. Who's going to be that guy, especially as you get into the next round? Because as far as I'm concerned, this particular series is done.
Yeah, I mean, it's a concern. Like, I think if two of the three guys you mentioned have a bad night, they're probably not equipped to win a game. But having four guys who can create shots off the dribble is a luxury. I think having three is plenty. And frankly, I think Marcus Smart is pretty good when he gets in the lane too. I know he misses a lot of shots and he's been extremely cold through 2 games, but I just think, like, the evidence that we've seen so far shows that they're generating offense just fine without Hayward. I don't they won game 1 without anybody besides Tatum getting particularly hot until the end. They didn't shoot well as a team in game 1. It's just encouraging to me that they can grind out those wins. I mean, they also have a really good defense, so that I don't think gets worse when you lose Hayward.
The one thing I'll pair it and I'll piggyback off Seth here is, like, the playmaking that we've seen, the vision we've seen from Tatum and Brown over the bubble has been really impressive. I mean, Tatum had a couple of passes last night that were really unbelievable, and Brown has had a couple in transition that make you fall out of your chair. But the one thing they'll miss with Hayward, and the defensive stuff, I think they can make do because they're a defensive team at their core. The one thing that they'll miss is the shooting that Hayward gives you, at least the shooting, the floor spacing. Like, as much as I loved Grant Williams last night, he's not going to hit 100% of his threes. He's just not. You have more evidence that he's not going to do that than he is. Enes Kanter hit a 3 last night at the end of the shot clock. They're going to miss that shooting. And as much as you want to say Grant's going to space the floor, he's going to be given that shot. I mean, we've seen the evidence. Embiid and the rest of the bigs are going to give Grant Williams and Daniel Tice those threes. They're going to say, well, look, if they're going to hit threes, we're sunk. We're done. We can't let Tatum shoot. We can't let Kemba shoot. We can't let Brown shoot. But if Grant Williams burns us from the corner, I mean, we're gonna have to live with that. So the Gordon Hayward shooting aspect, whether it's in the mid range or from 3-point range, is where you're gonna really miss him. And Boston's got to figure, like, Marcus Smart getting hot from 3 would be he is the all-time leading 3-point shooter in a game for the Celtics in the history of the team. So it's not like he can get hot from 3 either. But they're gonna need somebody to fill that void, and whether it's Romeo once or twice, or if it's Grant last night, or if it's Smart heating up or whatever, somebody's got to fill that, and I'm not quite sure where that comes from. That's my only concern.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, like, Hayward brings like a certain amount of like gravity. Teams are a little worried about him, and they're not worried about Grant Williams and Tice in the same way. Right. But so I do think those guys just need to shoot, though. And I was encouraged with Grant last night that he's like pulling the trigger without hesitating.
Not like Tice. Tice
needs to do the same.
Tice killed me last night. It's killing me.
He can't have those moments where he like. The Celtics' whole offense is based on making quick decisions, and you just can't have these moments where you hesitate before you take a wide open shot like that.
So, Seth, why do you hate Gordon Hayward so much and want Danny to get rid of him this offseason?
Okay, so the other piece of this is that they're going to be way capped out next year. And like, we don't even know what's going to happen with the salary cap. And so I just think that contract, I'm assuming Hayward opts in, especially after this injury. That
right.
There's no way he's like opting out of that contract. So that like salary as an expiring contract is kind of the last chance this team has to have a big piece of salary to ship out in a possible trade. I mean, I don't know that they'll do it, and I don't know that there's going to be teams out there clamoring to get Gordon Hayward. But he'll probably be good enough next year that you wouldn't want to just dump him as an expiring contract. But I do think if the right player becomes available, they're going to think about using that salary just because they don't have any other means of bringing in someone with a big salary.
Yeah.
So what I have, obviously Seth and I have talked about this, Evan, and the thing that I keep coming back to with Seth, and it's one of those just, you don't know till you know. You can't answer it. So I'm only asking for your theory here. But I just don't see Danny doing it. And it's not to say that he is a different, truly, I wouldn't even entertain it if not for the fact that he traded Isaiah Thomas right after he gave his body to the team after his sister died. And still it just showed, and I'm not faulting Danny either. It's a cutthroat business. He saw what appeared to be a good move and he made it. And I think it's a move he would still make again today, even if he knew what the future was.
And he's got a history of this.
Right. I mean, he'll make the tough decisions. He criticized Red Auerbach for not making the tough decisions. We all know that, but I don't know. There's just to me, Gordon Hayward feels different to me, and maybe it's the bond with Brad Stevens, who, of course, just got the extension. Not to say that Brad couldn't get past it. He understands the business as well, but I hesitate to believe, it's one thing that if they don't re-sign him down the road, but right after another injury and what has just been not through any fault of his own, a bust of a free agent signing during his time here, I don't see Danny moving him this offseason, but do you disagree?
It won't be I don't think it'll be in the off season, but I do think I think you have to imagine a scenario where this is happening this isn't immediately after Hayward's gotten hurt, but are you
thinking trade deadline next year?
Yeah. Or in the beginning of the season. I just think every year, we don't know who it's going to be, but every year in the NBA, some disgruntled big contract becomes available. And I think that there have been times where the Celtics wished they had the available contracts to go get a guy like that. I think and for the past season or so, the only contract they've had that you could get anybody with was Marcus Smart, who I don't think there's any chance they're going to move.
Yeah, he's untouchable.
Yeah, I mean, the only other contract they have that you could even do anything with is Poirier, and who's making $2.6 million. So they just don't have any other means of getting anybody. But I mean, the idea that Danny Ainge is going to be sentimental or kind about this is ridiculous.
No, Danny is cutthroat. He is ruthless, and if the opportunity were to present itself, Danny would trade Hayward in a minute. And that's why I love Danny. I don't know if that trade will ever materialize. And unless that Memphis pick conveys to the next season, which I don't.
That's what we're hoping for. That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, let's
we'll know very quickly.
Tonight.
The next couple
draft
hours
lottery
here,
tonight.
whether that's going to happen or not. But unless that pick conveys to next year,
yeah.
If it does, then my eyes get real big, and it's like, okay, who can they swindle here? It's just going to be a hard contract to move unless you have a team that's okay with taking on the salary and just being like, yeah, we'll write out Hayward till it's over. But somebody that would value his smarts on the floor too. He's a high IQ player. It's just been a snake bitten contract. It's just been it's awful. There's nothing you can do about it. I feel terrible for Hayward, but to say that Taney wouldn't trade Hayward, I think you're lying to yourself, Adam. I'm just
I know.
Right
Yeah,
you're lying to yourself.
Kaufman, be better.
Yeah, come on.
He traded Isaiah literally after Isaiah, as you said, sacrificed his entire body.
And by the way, thank God he did.
Yeah. That's why Boston will always be kind to Isaiah Thomas, because Isaiah gave everything he had. And that's all any fan asks for. Isaiah literally gave everything he had.
Yeah, that season was amazing.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
That Miami game in December was like one of my favorite games of all time. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Seth, the series end in a sweep, or are you going to give the Sixers one?
I mean, I don't know. Honestly, game one makes me think it could be a sweep. Like the fact that the Celtics won a game where they weren't making shots really.
Got out rebounded too.
And got out rebounded. Yeah. So, I mean, it's possible, but you got to assume like, I don't know. Weirdly, I feel like there's going to be like a Raul Neto game. Like we do sometimes do a terrible job against like guards that can like score a little bit in the pick and roll. Like that game where we got like lit up by Karis LeVert earlier this season. I know Raul Neto's not that good. I could just like see a weird game where like Alec Burks or Raul Neto or
Shake
somebody.
Milton.
Yeah, Shake Milton. Like
goes off for 25.
So I'm gonna stick with Celtics in 5.
Me too.
All right. With that, as these guys mentioned, the 2020 draft lottery, it's tonight, 8:30 ESPN. Really all you need to know is that the Memphis pick is top 6 protected. It can only land at one of the 5 spots in the lottery, 1 to 4 or 14. The lottery is, of course, deciding the first 4 picks. Grizzlies at 1 to 4. Pick goes to the Celtics at number 14. Those are the options. So, and Memphis also is the 14th best or worst, depending on how you want to look at it, odds of moving up in the lottery. Thank you to our pal Keith Smith for that information on the Celtics blog website. So that's about the one thing to watch for tonight. And then more immediate, enjoyment anyway will obviously come in the form of game 3 tomorrow, and hopefully Celtics can really take a commanding 3-0 series lead. But this was fun. This was a fun show. A lot of good info from Ben, my buddy Landman, dropping in to give us some flaming hot Gordon Hayward takes. We'll maybe we'll revisit again next week, see where this thing stands. Maybe at that point in time we're looking ahead to round 2. I want to tell the people, of course, we want to thank our sponsors once again, betonline.ag and Manscaped. Betonline.ag, go there today for your free sign-up bonus. Get 20% off as well and free shipping with the code BEAT20 at manscaped.com. Seth, you should really look into this product.
I really need to.
I got this. I got the care package sent to my house last year, and let me tell you, it's not bad.
I have 2 of them because they sent one recently, and my wife says to me, she's like, we have 2 of these, and if you don't put one of these into action more regularly, it's gone. Like, I'm just going to throw it away. Well, that's very, very unkind. But what are you going to do? You got to do what the sponsor tells you. All right, we're going to get out of here before we get ourselves in trouble by saying something wildly inappropriate. Seth, thank you for hopping on, buddy.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right, go Celtics, and I love that hat. Throwback, baby. Evan Valenti, I'm Adam Kaufman. Ev, let's do it again soon.